park is dope. I come here almost every day. I'll just take a stroll. I call this the People's Park. I call it the People's Park because literally the people are here. And in Astoria, like a lot of our parks have been gentrified. This is one of those parks that caters to like the immigrant community here in this part of Astoria. That's the icy, B. It's the icy. Icy's on deck. Coco mango cherry. It's gotta be from Costco. Often I come to this space and like, I'll meditate and my concentration is mostly on the greens and the blues and the river, right? I think that building shows where human society has evolved to, right? And, I have mixed feelings, right? Because I think that it's beautiful in so many ways, architecturally, right? Just the defiance of nature to actually build it, right? It really speaks to like the human intellect. I still have mixed feelings because, who are they building that for? Is it for me? Is it for us? A lot of the times it's for people who don't even come from here, right? And I welcome all people. New York City welcomes all people. But when our building is prioritizing people who are coming in as opposed to the communities that have been here for, a long time, I think that's problematic, right? I've been in those buildings. I have friends who live in those buildings, and sure, there's like a sense of community there, but it's a passive sense of community, right? It's like, oh, I see you every day, as opposed to like, we're in this together every day. I would love to have a space like that, right? But if I'm not living amongst my people, I'm good.
New York is unusual because it's much more diverse than most places on the planet. You can't find an ethnic group that's not present in New York. It's dense. There's so many things. You can find anything you want in New York City. It's got all the peoples in the world all crammed together. I think the truth is that New York City is very attractive to young people who are not part of the 1%, who just want to get ahead in life. There is no better place in New York to do that. Yeah, the apartments cost $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month. But the truth is, New York is a place to make money. You want to make it? No other place it serves the purpose as well. And that's probably been the case for 400 years. The New York of the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, there's not much to feel nostalgic about. First of all, it was dirty. Second of all, people were trying to escape New York. The city lost 800,000 people just in the 1970s, and that's a net figure. 1.5 million moved away. Crime was high. Corporations were leaving. Factories were getting out of town. It looked like the city was going to the dogs. Right now, New York is in a good spot because the crime rate is at historic lows. The unemployment rate is at historic lows. The number of people employed is at historic highs. The problem with New York City is more people want to live in the city than the city has room for. There are very few neighborhoods of the 450 neighborhoods in New York that are not gentrifying at some level here in the 21st century. Now, the people who lose out in gentrification are the people who are renters, who don't have tenure in their apartment. Most people who own something welcome gentrification because it means that your house, your apartment's worth more than it used to be. I think gentrification is basically a good thing. It means that the city is successful.
Yeah, that's the homie Malcolm right there. What inspired me to get this picture was this was in Queens. He was living in Queens in Elmhurst actually. So when I found out that he was living in Queens, I'm like, I want this picture straight up. Um, and I think what it speaks to me is the extents that, black people that we have to go to defend ourselves. Malcolm was never about overtly, being violent against people. It was about self-defense. I got this from my mom and my sister for Christmas a couple years back. Um, and yeah, I think it's probably the only Christmas gift that ever made me cry. This is Fidel Castro, the former president of Cuba. Yeah, there's a lot of controversies around him for a whole host of reasons, and I think some are warranted. Um, his government, um, definitely has his issues, but I think that what he symbolizes for Cuba is um, the plight of the poor man, the plight of the working class, and the plight of the people, right? He led a revolution for the Cuban people in a way that no other leader has ever had done in the world ever. They definitely inspire me. I think they speak to elements of who I am. Fighting for civil rights and the liberation of my people are quintessential to who I am. So um, it's just a reminder, right, in art form of why I do what I do. I'm from Queens, born and raised. My parents were born in the Dominican Republic. So we moved to Astoria when I was about 2 or 3 years old, and I've been in Astoria ever since. Parents came out here for a better life, right? My pops particularly, I remember the story when he told me that, he decided to come out here. It was like on a whim. Like he didn't even have shoes on. And he was just like, yo, you want to go to New York? He's like, all right, we out. He had no idea what was in store for him, but he's like, all I know is that New York, there's money, so I'm gonna go get it and just send it back to my mom's and my family out here. So I actually grew up on a block in Astoria that was predominantly Greek and Italian immigrants. Growing up, I didn't necessarily see race because it was so diverse, right? I was very much like in the state of mind of like, ignorance is bliss, right? Like not really understanding like colorism or racism, right? And it really taught me about the world, like straight up. I was eating food from all over the world. It was a great experience, and it still is a great experience, having lived in a borough that is like the most diverse city in the world. As far as the gentrification component, when we moved to Astoria, rent was like, I think $800 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment up until I think it was 2009 when my parents moved out. So approximately 19 years later, the rent was at $1,700. So it nearly doubled. We were late on rent constantly. There were times that we were without light because we couldn't pay the light bill in the crib, right? Like it was real. Experiencing, firsthand being displaced from my childhood home was a key part in, my evolution and my history. to a point where I was, tired of being a victim of circumstance. And as I grew older, I started drawing the connections. Housing justice is racial justice, right? In America, if you're black, you're oppressed, right? If you are poor, you are oppressed. If you black and you poor, I'm gonna pray for you.
By definition, New York City is constantly changing. And it's still changing as this is being filmed. Hello, Mayday Hardware. I will tomorrow. Yes. Okay, bye-bye. Then it's coming out of Jackson. Sold American. Thank you. I am born, bred, and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I was born in 1951. I started working here at age 12, just as a kid running out of harm's way into a store looking for safe harborage because it was that dangerous to just, as a young pre-teenage boy, just to walk the streets. A man put a broom in my hand and I'm here ever since, and now I own the place. Mayday Hardware really is the only business that has stayed stable in Prospect Heights for the past 1/2 century, for the 50 years. In the late 60s and early 70s, this neighborhood was terribly, terribly degenerating. Crime was rampant. This precinct was the single highest major crime precinct in the entire 5 boroughs. Then it was probably one of the highest crime rates in the entire United States of America. Buildings were being neglected and abandoned. The neighborhood was absolutely and positively neglected. A local artist living in the area that I've befriended and I'm still very good friends with, I gave her a series of maybe 20 photographs of the avenue, and I told her that I wanted to paint what the avenue looked like because I knew that the avenue would eventually change. This painting is dated from 1980. It even includes the purse snatcher, which was a common regular occurrence at that time. None of this exists anymore except for Mayday Hardware. This particular neighborhood in Brooklyn, Prospect Heights, is not only the center of Brooklyn, it's the center of the 5 boroughs. I have seen changes, and it's still changing, obviously. And then, of course, right now, this neighborhood, it's become literally unaffordable for most. It has all of the things that anyone would want, which is why it's regentrified today to the point that it is. I'm going to answer that call. Yes, it will happen. Say it again? No shit, Sherlock. Of course. I've survived multiple riots. I've survived a major fire here. I've survived other businesses being burned out here. Armed robberies. As I'm approaching retirement, I know that when I leave this, it will no longer be a hardware store. I know that when I sell this property, it's going to be leveled. Apartment houses will take its place. It'll be multi-stories. There'll be many families living here. I won't be here.
I'm third generation Lower East Sider. My grandparents migrated from South Carolina to the Lower East Side. What I remember about my grandmother, me and my mother both share this, she loved the Lower East Side and she appreciated the opportunities that were there. And I think for her, coming from the South and then moving somewhere where it was diverse and there were other people around of other ethnicities, and it was an ability to stand on her own as a Black woman and be unapologetic with it. And I think for most African American Black people, finding somewhere where you can feel free was a rarity. And I think the Lower East Side provided a space for her to be able to do that. Well, this person is my mom, Barbara Jetter. My mother was born and raised on Lower East Side. She's a proud Lower East Sider, always shouting Lower East Side. Where you from? Lower East Side. Never Manhattan, never New York. Where you from? Lower East Side. So she instilled a lot of that in me. I'm born and raised on the Lower East Side. I live with my mom and my 2 kids. Went to elementary school and middle school on the Lower East Side. Being raised on the Lower East Side was absolutely fantastic. It was very community friendly. Everyone knew everyone, and if you moved here, it wasn't like you just moved into an apartment. You gained a family, because you can always find someone that looks like you or talks like you. It's the diversity. It was just all about art and expressing yourself and not having to think about being judged. Like, that was the Lower East Side. You were able to be yourself and develop who you wanted to be on the Lower East Side, and you can take that anywhere. Over the years, the Lower East Side's changed in the aspect that as gentrification started to slowly creep up, Giuliani's rule over quality of life, where it was now time to get rid of all the people that we find less than on the Lower East Side.
The thing that we started in New York City in 1994 is something called the broken windows theory. The broken windows theory basically says you should not disregard small things that are going wrong, because if you disregard small things that are going wrong for too long, they become big things. While city-wide arrests have gone up to record highs, which is one of the ways in which we've also brought down crime, we arrest a lot of people, particularly drug dealers.
Those drug arrests were not necessarily just these major drug dealers. This could be someone smoking marijuana and just having a little amount of marijuana on them, and then now having a drug arrest. And with those criminal records, you're not allowed, a lot of people were not allowed to remain in housing. So families were losing children and husbands and mothers. It started to change the dynamic of the neighborhood, because there were a lot more people moving out, more people moving in from different areas that didn't have that same sense of community. So after a while, it started to feel like the community was getting smaller, not mingling with us. It wasn't a co-mingling. It was more so outside and then us. The Lower East Side, the Chinatown area, were then up for grabs for anyone to take and disrupt and have gentrification happen. And Chinatown started to grow as federal regulations changed, and more immigrants from China were able to come, and more immigration from Asia was able to come, and it became overpopulated. So Chinatown started to move over into more of the Lower East Side, and as they started to move over the Lower East Side, there was more people of lower income in the area. Bloomberg was just like, all right, have at the Lower East Side, where there's still people that we can push out available. They're not people that are politically astute or aligned with any political party or aligned with anyone with money to advocate for them. You can have that.
Lower East Side, not for sale. Lower East Side, not for sale.
Tippers flare inside and outside a hearing on a plan to change the face of a big portion of Lower Manhattan.
They're doing it to kick out poor people, they're doing it to kick out the small businesses, and they're doing it to kick out the people of color in this community.
That's simply not fair. There's absolutely no racist component to this rezoning.
They started to grab up more space, and then it became something that we understood that we needed to come together with. It couldn't be just Chinatown and the Lower East Side. It had to be Chinatown and the Lower East Side, because we had to protect each other, because there was nobody that was going to help us.
This is where people used to dance and party for the last 19 years. Guys, girls, transgender males, transgender females. I'd come out and dance with them from time to time. Of course, when I was young, I would dance more, but as I got older, I danced less. These are tools, so we can get, let's put all these tools together. My name is Calvin Clark. I'm from the South Bronx. That's where I grew up at. And I migrated to Brooklyn in my 20s. It was the early 2001 that we opened. I don't think there were any gay black clubs that primarily serve the black gay community in New York City at the time. What more a way of affirming ourselves than owning our own establishment? My father, he would say, you gotta work for yourself, don't work for the man. You know, that was my vision. New York is really, it's a city full of all kind of people, and but yet and still, people feel isolated. And so a place like this makes a huge difference. This neighborhood wasn't like it was. I mean, I literally have seen the neighborhood flip, gone from like being 90% black to almost 75% white. And so when a neighborhood becomes gentrified, some of the places that begin to feel that effect immediately are the places where people socialize. We opened 19 years ago, and we would literally be packed to the rafters. As the neighborhood has changed, we have seen that dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. And so it's not easy to make up for that deficit. The neighborhood is being gentrified. It means their property taxes go up also. Gentrification, you know, affects you on all those kind of levels. And the rent went up. It went from $4,000 to almost doubling. And we were only open 2 days a week. It was difficult to get other businesses in here sometimes because that's the gay place. It still had that like stigma. When I realized that we might be closing, I realized the kind of impact it might have on the community. The thing that frustrates me, if you only make it so that wealthy people can afford to live here, it loses some of its richness and its diversity and its flavor. And the same thing is happening with the whole city.
Hey, we're fighting Amazon. Yeah, we oppose Amazon. Hello, help stop Amazon. Hello, help stop Amazon. Help stop Amazon. Thank you. Have you heard about this, the whole Amazon thing? Yeah, Amazon's trying to build a big headquarters in Long Island City, so just got a lot of info on that.
I'll read it.
Yeah. Help stop Amazon. You've been following the news?
Breaking news tonight, the race for Amazon appears to be officially over. Wall Street Journal reports the headquarters will be split between New York and Northern Virginia.
25,000 new jobs. That's what Amazon says it will bring to Long Island City in Queens.
This is an area that is going to see a very big economic boom. Amazon today saying they are bringing at least 4 million square feet of office space, but potentially up to 8 million square feet of office space.
I mean, most cities would kill. I mean, they came close to killing to get this deal.
And if there are areas that may be dilapidated in Long Island City, they get built up. And all of a sudden you have shopping malls and Starbucks and things like that. It just turns into greatness.
What's up, man? Help stop Amazon. Folks don't follow politics. They don't really know necessarily what's happening. And then you have like the mayor, for example, saying that Amazon's good.
We're going to see in New York City alone over $13 billion in tax revenue coming to our city so that we can do things to help all New Yorkers.
And saying that they're bringing all these jobs. So when you hear that on the news over and over again, you start to believe them. I'm not going to qualify for any of these jobs.
Why not?
They're for really high-skilled tech workers. Land value is going to go up in Queens. Well, it's going to be good for the people who own the property, but the vast, like 99% of people who live here rent, and our rents are going to go up.
They're going up already.
They probably buy from Amazon. They don't know what it means for their headquarters to be moving here. Yeah, the guy that came by before, he has a different class interest.
The city's headed in this terrible direction. All the affordable areas are becoming unaffordable. It was found out that the average salary of the Amazon HQ2 workers is going to be $150,000 a year. So that's way above the average salary of any Queens resident. And it's not good for low-income people who work here and make the city run. We see like a line getting drawn, and if we don't fight Amazon, then it's gonna like destroy the borough, basically.
Next, very important speaker representing community. It's my pleasure to represent now Reverend Patrick Young. Reverend.
The reason why we need to support Amazon, they are the investors, not in the capital and building, not in the many issues of money, but investing in human capital.
Yes, sir.
That is the New York way.
So we're going to bring jobs here, and that's what needs to happen here. I'm in favor of it, and everybody behind me is in favor of it.
But don't just support this project because of the 25,000 jobs. Don't just support it because of the billions and billions of dollars of infrastructure. Don't just support it because it's going to bring a lot of new jobs and opportunities. And that it's changed the fact that the technology scene has gone from the West Coast to the East Coast.
Fuck you!
Fuck you! And I want to thank Governor Andrew Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio for doing what they had to do to bring Amazon to New York City. So let's give them a round of applause. These are real jobs, real opportunity. Thank you all very much. Thank you. One of the reasons that Amazon came to New York City is because of the local talent. That is a fact. They want to draft people and bring people into their organization as employees from New York City. That's the whole point of them coming to New York City. So I don't agree with that philosophy and that fear that these are going to be people coming from all over the country and relocating in New York City.
Biggest points of contention are a $3 billion tax break for Amazon and a lack of jobs allotted for Queensbridge residents.
They say they're bringing 25,000 jobs to this community, and they're only talking about bringing 30 to the largest public housing development in the country, which happens to be just down the street from where they want to arrive.
I believe that's taking advantage of us. You know, we're not even middle class. We're below.
The state senator is leading the charge to keep Amazon out of New York City. He and local activists came to the Queensbridge houses armed with petitions and information.
Race struggle is class struggle. I pray for myself every day and my people, right? But I also hit the streets. Hey everybody, how you guys doing today? This is why I organize. This is why I'm an activist. This is why I'm gonna be a lawyer. What I think people fail to understand in this conversation about bringing Amazon here was that they didn't understand the long-term implications and what that meant for the everyday working people. My initial reaction was like, no way. No way are they about to do this to Queens. Queensbridge is basically the New York City Housing Authority, public housing projects here in Western Queens. And it's a beautiful place, you know, where I feel like it's one of the vestiges of community, of solidarity, of day-to-day living and camaraderie that still exists here in New York City. And the thought of Amazon just like coming ashore and setting up shop was akin to like, you know, the colonists, you know, coming to, you know, colonize the Americas. That's literally how I felt. Like they were coming ashore and they were getting ready to set up shop to take over Queens. And I was like, this is unacceptable. Growing up, it was predominantly an immigrant, you know, community. You bring in, you know, Amazon here, the prospect of the variety of groups of people that are going to move into here are going to look vastly different than the people that I grew up with. And I think that's a legitimate concern.
I'm sure a lot of you know there were about 70 elected officials who signed a letter inviting Amazon to come to your city. I was one that did not sign that letter. You can easily go on Google to see the impact Amazon has had on Seattle. The cost of living has gone up. Communities like ours were not invested in, and people are being pushed out on a daily basis. And we have to be very cognizant of that. It's so easy.
I'm very aware of what's going on. Let's stop with this Amazon, because it is going to give some of these young people in this neighborhood a job. I'm going to make sure my daggone grandchildren are first online. Yeah, right. When you're talking jobs, that's all I'm concerned about. I'm for the young people, and I'm for Amazon.
I want to speak to that. So we need to get the full picture about Amazon. So HQ1, which was the first headquarters that was planted in Seattle, when they came into Seattle, the level of homelessness in Seattle increased 41%. And those jobs that you're talking about that they're gonna maybe give to our community, they're not guaranteed. The trade-off is this: the cost of living is gonna go much higher. So think about that.
If they do bring jobs, wonderful. But you got to do it the right way. You can't just come in as a major developer or a billionaire business person, come into a neighborhood and set up shop, and the community's not involved. Or there's a dealer process that's actually supposed to happen where you bring the community in. So we're saying no backrooms deal, because you're not going to get the best deal after the deal's already done. So if you're negotiating with Amazon, it's better to be negotiating before they're here to get something for the community, rather than they're already here now, and now we're going to try to get some crumbs from the table now.
It's going to erode the social fabric of New York City if we allow Amazon to come here. It just disturbs me that they're in this vulnerable position and they're not even aware of it, and it's being masked by the prospect of jobs that probably won't even go to them in the first place.
If we don't come together, if we don't push back, they're going to just roll over us and do whatever they want. So we need to come out, and we need to come out in droves and really fight back, because we can do it. We can do it. Together, we can.
Not just about creating great buildings, it's about creating a great lifestyle for people.
What type of apartment can you get for $2.3 million in New York City?
This is the first glass tower on the Lower East Side waterfront. One Manhattan Square is one of many developments that are happening in the Lower East Side right now.
Those two buildings are the start of me fighting. Two buildings remind me that they feel like I'm not worth anything. It's literally in my backyard. I heard about the building being built at a community board meeting.
None of them require affordable housing. We are trying to figure ways to maximize affordable housing in the two bridges complex. I can tell you up front that you can say that, but I'm telling you the truth. We believe it is legally moving forward and that's legally appropriate, whether we would have done that or not.
My initial reaction was, what the WTF? It was all four-letter words, because I automatically knew that anything that was being built was not for me. Anything that was proposed did not have me in mind. It had me leaving in mind. What hurts me about it is the fact that when it was proposed, it was supposed to be like an 80-20 building where they have low income and middle income in the building. What they decided to do was build a building alongside it, which shows you what they think of people like myself. This short building is the low income units that they promised. Originally were supposed to be inside of the development, but they decided to have them outside. It basically shows that they're not a part of that community. Sort of reminds me in the South where my grandparents grew up, you weren't supposed to look a white man in his eye. And this reminds me that they're saying, like, basically, you can live here, but don't look me in the eye. Stay your head down. Stay down. It's a symbol of oppression. And if you don't see my value, I see it. But I'm not going to keep my head down and keep walking. I'm going to walk with my head up high. I know my worth. the adage, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. This is going to fall down hard. It's going to fall down hard. And I'm not going to be sad. So my initial response was to fight. Put on your armor. It's time to fight. Because this is not for me. And I have kids I have to think about.
A group of tenants on the Lower East Side is going to court in Manhattan to try to prevent the Two Bridges development from moving forward. The project calls for 4 brand new skyscrapers, but opponents say it will ruin the neighborhood's character.
Several developers want to build 4 high-rise residential buildings here on the Lower East Side between the Manhattan and the Brooklyn bridges.
One of the most important things for us as a coalition is that this is really like the last working class neighborhood still standing in Lower Manhattan.
So this is a rendering made by Municipal Art Society based on what the developers filed. And this is what these 3 developers are proposing. So very far from what the community came up with. The community said that 35 stories would be an adequate height to continue with this. But of course, developers see a better business doing this.
And this is all breaking the law to begin with.
That's our argument. Right now, there's 4 lawsuits against the City of New York and the City Planning Commission and Department of Buildings by different neighborhood groups. Our lawsuit is one of those 4. So this is the last site here, and I'm showing you here one of the shadow studies that were contained in the environmental impact statement that was filed with the City Planning Commission. And I just want to tell you that when you're walking in the Lansing, you will be walking in the shadow of these towers. And I have already been experiencing, in the winter, 1 hour less of sun.
But to me, the big issue here that dwarfs all the other issues is that just next door from this neighborhood is Chinatown. Chinatown is one of the poorest neighborhoods in the entire state of New York. But it's not a desolate place. It's actually a very lively community with a lot of history and a lot of culture. It's a very vibrant community, but it's also a very poor community. And these towers are, you talk about gentrification in the local, but it has a displacement effect throughout.
Yes.
And I think that these towers are going to spell the end of Chinatown. That to me is the real concern about this.
I totally agree.
It's about the displacement of Chinatown.
Hello, my name is Arnett Scott, and I'm a proud plaintiff on this lawsuit. The plaintiffs here are now, we're fighting for the immediate effects of these towers, and that is crippling our health. I am a parent of young children. I have a mother who has chronic lung problems. I want to be here for my family. I want to live. I want to have the right to breathe. So we stand here not only against what's going to happen to generations to come, but what's going to happen to us today. If those buildings go up, we will then lose the right to have clean air. We will lose the right to have clean water. We will lose the right to have good sanitation. This is going to affect our health immediately, not tomorrow, not 10 years from now. Just a couple of yards from here, we have an African burial ground. I do not want to be memorialized on the Lower East Side because I died due to the destruction of my community. We're here to fight not only just for our community, but for our lives. This is a life and death situation.
You hear loud and clear, right? Why do we say no towers
Our rent had increased to almost doubling. Tried to get loans, and I got turned down for that. I felt helpless, and I wasn't sure where to turn. I was just at a loss. And I got this idea. I'm going to take a stand, and I'm going to just stand outside of Langston's for 10 days, and I'm going to ask the community for support. 12 hours a day for 10 days, fasting, no eating, and no talking. The tape over my mouth kind of came on the second day because I thought I would be silent to represent all the silent voices that just don't have the courage to speak for themselves. I try to meditate and keep my mind clear, and so standing up here like this for 12 hours, and the last day was 24 hours. People can say what they want about New York, but in the 10 days that I stood up on that podium, not one time did I have anyone say anything homophobic, anything anti-gay. See, I love that about New York. With that, get rid of this stuff. So at some point, I didn't want to fight anymore. I talked to my landlord, and I told him, you know, if I didn't have his money, I would give him the keys. All this, Alex, boom, gone. In the 19 years that we've been open, there's not been one single club that has opened up that was catering to this community. So, like all things, they have to come to an end, and I have to, you know, appreciate the time that I've had here and the people that I've met, and hopefully, the place has helped some people along the way, and I felt like I fought a good fight. I did everything I thought I could do, and it's just sometimes time to move on and turn the page.
It's the delivery these New Yorkers desperately want, to see Amazon's HQ2 come to Queens.
We face probably the most important economic decision in generations for our city.
The presidents of local tenant associations and other community leaders say they're confident that Amazon will provide their residents with jobs and diversify the local economy.
We're going to stay at the table if they're going to stay in Northwestern Queens, and they're going to hear us.
The mayor and governor have argued the Amazon deal will mean 25,000 new jobs and more than $18 billion in new tax revenue over the next 10 years. But that's not persuading many of these protesters.
We are at a crossroad of who can afford to live in the city and who cannot. As we look around us, we are surrounded by unaffordability, overcrowding, lack of well-paying, sustainable jobs, and homelessness. These issues affect all residents in Queens, as well as all tenants of New York City Housing Authority.
NYCHA is the New York City Housing Authority, which is the public housing projects throughout New York City. And that's kind of the goal here, to really change the narrative. It was about connecting the housing issues with the Amazon issue, the conditions that people were living in Queensbridge and throughout NYCHA.
From kitchens falling apart,
having to take care of my son, and when he wants me to cook him something, I have to tell him, well, I can't cook today because it's leaking or the ceiling might fall.
And that neglect, and how that would be further exacerbated by Amazon's presence here.
We are sending the message now that if
billion-dollar corporations and elected officials are not here listening to the power of the people, they will not continue. So now we have to stand together and fight. People here in NYCHA, in Queensbridge, in Ravenswood, in Astoria projects are currently living without heat. They're currently living with mold in deplorable housing conditions. How is that just in a moral society? In 2019, where we're supposed to give $3 billion worth of tax incentives to the richest man in the world, there are still people here living in cold, suffering. That is unjust, and we must stand united against that. Queens, we stand united against Amazon.
Queens is not for sale. Queens is not for sale. Queens is not for sale.
What do you think about Amazon coming here?
I think it would be great. I mean, you know, if they're hiring.
If they're hiring for people from the
people
community, yes.
Community, yeah, but
if it's not, then no.
Look, nigga, I can talk for myself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right now, it's kind of hard since, you know, there's a lot of things going on in the economy, and some people, it's hard for them to find a job. So I think Amazon would be a good place for them, you know, to get their working started.
Okay, she's testing. Sounds good. I ask you to come in the midst of this meeting now, Lord God, be present. Let us have this meeting in a nice, normal fashion, Lord God, that we can talk to each other and come to some type of conclusions, Lord God.
We are planning a direct action fighting against Amazon and say that enough's enough. They use Queensbridge as a prop. They come here, they get all the media attention, everybody shows up, they visit apartments and all this stuff, and then they go away. You know, we control what goes on in this neighborhood, and this is our time. If we could push Amazon out, this entire city would change.
The strength lies in numbers. We need to start talking to our neighbors. We have to start reimagining what kind of city we want to live in. Do we want to live in a city where they keep pushing us out? The Amazon fight, if we don't step up and do something now, we're going to have a whole different city on our hands.
They know the cost of living is going up. They know the cost of food is going up. They know the cost of transit is going up. These people have been working day by day, check to check, you know, for years. And I think that when you talk about a community like Queensbridge that has been neglected, has been disinvested in for so many years due to racist policies, any sound or thought of getting to a space where you can maybe secure some income is like, hooray, great.
Amazon released a statement indicating it's moving forward to show Queens the tech giant would make a great neighbor.
This certainly consolidates Queens as a great economic capital.
We'll have administrative jobs, clerical jobs, maintenance jobs, some tech jobs, some higher level jobs.
Well, I would love a job at Amazon, you know, why not?
Sure, you might have, you know, a minimum wage job, working at a warehouse, but what's that mean for your social upward mobility? What's that mean for generational wealth for you, your family, your kids, and moving forward? That's enough to do the day by day. We've been doing the day by day for years. I can't sit idle and allow this to happen. I feel like I'm in a super privileged position to be a college graduate, to be in law school, you know, being a first generation Dominican American. And I feel just like an obligation, you know, to my people and to my communities to step up and, you know, help lead this cause to fight against these type of injustices.
We have been talking about this, stopping the mega towers forever. Excel Towers was the first time we started to say, well, the community got together and actually saw how awful these plans were to gentrify this area.
It's a desirable community to live in, and it didn't happen because people moved in. It happened because people lived here and maintained the community. So it's a fight for me because it's my blood, sweat, and tears. I was born and raised here, and I'm not going to give it up. Growing up here, I just didn't have a lot of Chinese friends. because the notion that I had growing up is that it was them and this is us. It was mind-boggling to see how many Chinese and Asian people were about saving everyone.
Yeah. And as your constituent and boss, we're telling you, no towers, no compromise. Time to get in the street.
They chanted Lower East Side not for sale outside Community Board 3's public hearing Monday.
Lower East Side, not for sale. Chinatown, not for sale. Lower East Side, not for sale. Chinatown, not for sale.
Now, Amazon may pull stakes due to a massive blowback from local liberal politicians over tax breaks worth $2.8 billion over 10 years from the state and the city.
We incentivized Amazon to come, as we incentivize every big business to come.
Anti-Amazon flyers went on doors Saturday, and petitions were circulating calling for the HQ2 campus deal to die.
We must stand together and question what is happening with this deal. Is it good for New York City? Is it good for the community? No! Is how Amazon operates good for workers? No! Can we do better? Yeah! Should we do better?
Today's a powerful day. This is our second time coming on Martin Luther King's holiday to express our dismay on the racist policies that are allowing them to try to push through for luxury towers.
The most important thing that I did was sign on as a plaintiff on the lawsuit to stop the buildings.
Now some residents who live in this neighborhood where that project is being planned, joining forces with the Asian American Legal Defense Fund, they are now filing a lawsuit to try to stop this project from being built.
If Amazon does not come to New York, it's because of the political opposition.
And so we're saying to our local assembly member, you have to change your stance on Amazon. You can't stand with multi-million-dollar corporations and not stand with us. You must stand with the community. You must stand for affordable housing. You must stand for unionizing. You must stand for workers.
We get 27, they get 3 billion back. I would do that all day long.
Governor Cuomo must be investing his time on how we invest in our schools, on how do we ensure that our kids, that our future is taken care of. He shouldn't be spending time trying to bring Amazon in here. We don't want them.
If you think that this deal isn't already affecting us, you are mistaken. Today I received a rent increase. I don't foresee being able to afford to live here in another 2 years.
Caliente, café, caliente. Amazon es bueno para la gente.
The secret backdoor deal between Amazon and our pro-gentrification mayor subverts democracy and endangers one of the most culturally rich areas in the country, Queens. The war on immigrants and workers is a war worth fighting to end. The people will not let you take one more block. Thank you. Power to the people!
Dana, those published reports that suggest that what seemed like such a done deal may be in limbo, and now people who want Amazon here and people who dread it coming here just want the same thing answered. What's going on?
Oh, Amazon has got to go. Hey, hey. Oh, Amazon has got to go. Hey,
And I'm here because I am a fighter, and I will continue to fight as long as there's breath in my body. I am not leaving the Lower East Side.
I was home, I got an email, and I shouted as if I won the lottery. We won the lawsuit to stop the buildings.
I asked my daughter to say our mantra, no towers, no compromise. because like out of nowhere she'll start chanting that, and it's a reminder about community and getting together and fighting. And I wanted her to say it, but she doesn't feel like it right now. I guess we have to be in a cold somewhere. He's shouting it. But I do want to start off with saying no towers, no compromise. We reminded them who we are as a community and the fact that government was established to protect people, not to destroy them. It was a winning moment, and it's a winning moment for all those that organize and believe in the power of people. This was a people's movement. Had nothing to do with any elected official. They all had their opportunity to get on board and they didn't. It was a coalition of people coming together and saying enough is enough.
So we, the people of Chinatown, we participate in the fight against these luxury towers because we see that these towers will drive up the rent and the real estate tax. And many of us will no longer be able to afford, to live here, to work here. We fight racism not because of the elected officials who try to divide us, but we fight racism by unifying the community.
This is our victory party after the judge in our lawsuit sided with us, with the community. Well, the community is a reflection of New York City, of the New York City we love and we're fighting to preserve. And especially, it's a reflection of this neighborhood. We are Latinos, we're Chinese, we're black, we're white, we're old, we're young, we're Jewish, everyone is here. We are elated.
Stunning and sudden announcement today from Amazon canceling plans to build a giant corporate center, one of its new headquarters here in New York City.
This time, they do not intend on starting a new search for a New York replacement.
I think it's incredible. I mean, it shows that everyday Americans still have the power to organize and fight for their communities, and they can have more say in this country than the richest man in the world.
I was coming out of class, and it was Valentine's Day, and my friend Phoebe, she comes up to me and she was like, "Look, did you see?" I'm like, "What?" And I see an ad from the New York Times saying Amazon is no longer coming to New York City. We have a very strong victory before us today. And we need to be clear that this was done through the grassroots efforts of everyday people living in Queens, from Elmhurst to Astoria, from Jackson Heights to Corona, from Ravenswood to Queensbridge. These are the people who have denied Amazon's presence here in New York City today. And the reason why we've done this is because we believe in people over profits. Yeah. Housing over poverty. Yeah. True quality jobs and ownership of people over their labor. That is what we stand here today. Social movements have transformed society countless times, and we have one before us now. We can't pack our bags and go home yet. This is just the beginning.
Here in New York, the current American epicenter of this pandemic, the first data tonight suggesting that maybe, just maybe, social distancing is helping to slow the onslaught. Officials say the worst days are still to come. The numbers are still rising. Unemployment claims skyrocketing to unprecedented levels.
First up, those direct payments to most Americans. For people making up to $75,000 a year, a $1,200 check.
Until this passes, Josh, there's no way that I'm going to do anything with keys for the time being. Thank you, Josh. You stay well yourself, and I'll speak to you when this pandemic passes, if and when it does. Thanks a lot, Josh. Okay, bye-bye. It is life-threatening to be here now. I have plastic gloves if you need the plastic gloves. Please.
Oh, it's for sale?
one more life-threatening episode that I'm dealing with. I'm here now providing the essentials that people need to go on with their daily lives through this crisis. Disinfectant, face masks, nylon gloves, hand cleaner, all of the things that we need in order not to be killed by this invisible enemy of ours that we're all fighting today. I am mercenary because I do need the money. I'm very, very pleased that I can earn money when people are completely without income. Right there. Nice that the government is giving a stimulus of $1,200 per person. I've got to ask you, in New York City, what is that going to do? $1,200, that's going to be gone before you even knew that it came, and you're already behind the 8 ball from being without income for the past couple of weeks. You can't have people on the government dole just sitting at home collecting checks. You need people to work. It really isn't about black versus white. It's all about the buck. It's all about money.
Hello. Do you have any face masks?
No, ma'am.
Huh?
Tomorrow.
Okay. What kind will you have?
The kind that you want.
Huh?
The kind that you want.
Okay. And how much will it be?
$4.50 each.
Thank you.
New York City taking a beating from COVID-19, one of the most expensive real estate markets in the country, now in a worse state than after September 11th and the 2008 financial crisis.
Housing has been a public health issue since before this pandemic as well. There are now millions of people who don't know how they're going to continue paying their rent.
We already are dealing with a COVID situation. We don't need to lose our housing too. Don't let the community be dispersed and separated because people have to move to other cities and states. That's not fair. We'll never be
COVID-19 is a monumental time in our society. And if we don't get ready and stay on board, we're going to miss the boat. And once the protesting stops and everything is, subsides, because it will one day, we're going to turn around and find out we have nowhere to live. COVID exposed what the expectation of New York is and what New York really can be. Now you see a lot more what New York is about. And true New Yorkers, people that have been through the different ups and downs of New York, are standing tall. And we roll with the punches, and we do what we can for our community. This is a time where people come together and we still fight.
We gonna keep on marching, y'all.
COVID-19 hit, and it really upped the ante in terms of all the systems of oppression that existed, right? You don't have a job anymore. You lost your job because the city shut down because of the pandemic. People are getting sick. They don't have access to health care. They can't go to work. We decided to send a message and drop banners on the 59th Street Bridge that read "Cancel Rent." It was just a whirlwind of oppression concentrated even more on people.
The NYPD facing backlash over how its officers are enforcing social distancing. Some new numbers show several minority neighborhoods are seeing more summonses and even more arrests.
Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up! Don't shoot!
The marches right now is an indignation. My thing to Cuomo and any other politician is, if that was Chris Cuomo's head on that floor with that officer's knee on his neck and 3 others behind him, what would he do? What agenda would he put forth? What is it that he would want? I need him to act on that. I'm actually a victim of police brutality in this community. I was 13 and beat up by a police officer. Having these reminders is traumatic to say the least. It takes a lot of mental fortitude to be able to want to still fight.
My name is Donnelly Rodriguez, and I'm from Queens. I am a victim of police brutality. I've been stopped and frisked countless times. I've had to stand idle while my friends have been tasered, abused, and violated by police officers time and time and time and time again. How do you spell racist? NYPD. How do you spell racist? NYPD. You don't gotta answer any questions, my brother. Plead the fifth. Thank you. How do you spell racist? NYPD. How do you spell racist? NYPD.
The police are the soldiers of gentrification. They're the ones who put our people into prisons and into jail so that they can come in and bulldoze our communities and build shiny glass buildings and do it for profit.
Breaking news as the George Floyd protests turn destructive in parts of Manhattan.
There is damage everywhere you look. Honestly, it looks like a war zone.
Some New Yorkers are now wondering if this is the time to pull up stakes from a high-density area like the city and move to the suburbs before the next pandemic hits.
How many of those 500,000 people will return to New York City? And we just don't know yet.
With respect to, you know, the exodus here in New York City, if you're leaving for whatever reason, right, because of the pandemic, I think that really highlights a certain level of privilege that are afforded some people in the city. And I think it's important to ask and think about who is leaving and who has the even opportunity to leave, because it ain't poor people, right? I wish my people had the luxury to just, you know, get up and move somewhere else because of a public health issue, but that's not the reality for us. We gotta double down and increase our safety and take care of each other here, and that's what's going on.
We have experienced so much adversity after 9/11 and seeing the towers go down and living through that horrendous, traumatic experience pushed a lot of New Yorkers together. Those that didn't leave know what it is to stand and fight.
We don't want to leave. This is our home. This is where we grew up in. This is where we were raised. This is where we have deep and intimate bonds and relationships with the people around us, right? Like there's a certain, you know, air of the relationships and the nature of the relationships that exist in our city, right? Like going to work, like you stop at the bodegas, speak to Papi real quick, like, yo, Papi, let me get my bacon, egg, and cheese, right? Like salt, pepper, hot sauce, no ketchup, right? And you know, there's rapport there, like he knows the deal, he knows the vibes. And that is like the fabric of our city. That's the community of our city. So I think the individuals who can just up and leave might not necessarily experience New York in the same way. The COVID pandemic highlights how much of a struggle it is for the everyday New Yorker. The working class New Yorker, the poor New Yorker, the black New Yorker. And we're here to stay. We ain't going nowhere.
So, thank you. You can see here in this talks about the injunction against the towers that is still in place and is still in the courts. And we're waiting for this appeal of the developers to either go or not.
So today I just wanted to jump on and let people know that the fight continues. No towers, no compromise. And on Monday at noon, we will have a press conference. Support the fight for your neighborhood. It's not over.
So to move forward with this ridiculous plan of having 4 more towers that would block air and light to us is a detriment not to just the community and our pay, it's to our life.
power to the people, for the people. Let's go. Yeah. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. These are facts. The zoning policies in New York City historically have been racist and classist. That's just the facts. That's just the facts. It is a tool for justifying our neighborhoods time and time and time and time and time again. And I'm tired of it. I'm from Astoria. Whose lives matter? Black lives